Our next guest I am so honored to have on is Solaris BlueRaven. Solaris is a published author. She has several books out. One of them is Eye of the Remote, Black Operations in Areas Beyond 52, Transmutation Through Ascension. She produced a DVD documentary called Eye of the Remote and a Disclosure of Covert Technology. This film covers her personal induction experience with covert technology. She is a true clairvoyant. She's a remote viewer, a Wiccan. She's a certified second-degree black belt and instructor. She is the founder and owner of Ravenstar Films and Blue Star Fortress Coven, formerly known as Blue Star Celestial Order of Light, a virtual network and coven. She's the author of Goddess Ascending, a monthly newsletter, and she also is a speaker and a radio talk show host. I found her work so interesting and asked her to come on the program. And without any further delay, let's go ahead and get her on. Solaris, good evening and welcome to Fringe Radio.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, Pat. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, well, thank you for taking time. You're a very busy lady.
I am, but hey, I'll make time for you.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you. Your work and what you have done caught my eye actually some time ago. I actually went through my notes. I've been doing this program. We've been doing this program. This is our 5th year. And I had you penciled in some of my notes from way back when. After looking at your work, you do some astounding things.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've been on an interesting journey. Let's put it that way.
Well, for the listeners that don't know about you, why don't you give us a little bit of your background, and then let's talk some details and specifics. And wow, you kind of cover the gambit of fringy things.
Right. Well, I think they really. I think we should probably get to the fact of me being inducted in 2004. Which sparked this whole direction and course that I started taking. And basically what happened to me was I was pulled into a covert intelligence program which dealt with synthetic telepathy and pattern recognition and a lot of programming, a live feed, real-time handler, and some very interesting technology which was very exotic that was interfaced onto my neural circuitry and literally pulled me into artificial intelligence. So for the past 10 years I was integrated and calibrated with that technology. I can get into the specifics insofar as the parties involved. I do mention them on my documentary, Eye of the Remote, Disclosure in Covert Technology, of course. It's a DVD, and they are high profile in musicians. And I had to, there's a whole scenario about that, and of course they do have access to this black technology, and they've been using it for surveillance because it makes the ultimate spy bird technology.
Wow. Some of these things, we've had guests on in the past, Solaris, that consider themselves targeted individuals. Does some of the stuff that you've encountered or worked with kind of maybe pull you into that reign a little bit?
It can go into a category of targeted individuals. There are different levels to it. There's the microwave blasting. There's gaslighting. There are different formulas for targeted individuals. Some of the symptoms they get, there's a similarity, but the stuff that I was involved with is very, very different. The artificial intelligence design and the interface with the synthetic telepathy, dealing and being trained with a live handler real time, a real person. And this isn't an imaginary friend or a little communication system that's based on just a mock, dialogue. Literally, there was a real person who interfaced me and pulled me into the program, started programming me, and started running programs based on the artificial intelligence. So it's a little bit different because it's not about microwave blasting. This is more about beyond scalar waves and also 0-point transmissions. And I don't have the type of effects that these people that have come to me in the past who are targeted individuals have. It's a very different frequency and an anomaly signal in general.
Interesting, because I know most targeted individuals, first of all, the ones that I have had the opportunity to interview or talk with, first of all, talk about horrific events that have completely changed their life. It's turned their lives upside down. I've read Dr. Hall out of Texas. I've had him on the program, looked into some of his work. I didn't realize this targeted individual thing was as huge as it is. People even to the point of committing suicide because they think they're losing their mind.
Right. Well, the sad thing is everybody's washing it off and pretending they're schizophrenic. And I'm sure if you talk to Dr. Hall, he covered the EEG heterodyning and the mixing of the minds, which is what they do. Is they'll deploy, these covert departments will deploy a technology that actually clones a program onto the neural circuitry of the brain and creates this alter and personality. It can create multiple personalities. It can do a lot of damage to the neural circuitry in the system, of course, and a lot of these people think they're losing their minds when in fact they're not. Yeah, it's called EEG cloning. There's and heterodyning, and you can look this up. These are patents as well. Some of these patents are actually classified, and there are many that are not. So, yeah, it's horrific because so many people are being hit with different types of programs based on whether they want to pull them into a military abduction, which is a MyLab, or targeted individuals where they just want to run, just harass them or gaslight them because they don't like them, or maybe they've been involved with somebody who's high profile. With mine, it was more about a programming and specific programs, pattern recognition, obviously training me and trying to recruit me for a PsyCorps program. And the only reason I turned these people in was because I didn't believe that they should be misusing the technology and being abusive with it, which is what they were doing with me. So I had to draw the line. And also, like I said, I have anomaly signals that are very specific and are not similar to anyone that's ever been, quote unquote, the targeted individuals. So
now, did you? Let me, if we could step back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
With you being a black belt and a second degree black belt and the different things that just as your bio reads, I assume that you're a very what's the right word I'm looking here for, Solaris? You're a very a perfectionist, a grounded individual.
Yeah, professional, logical, analytical, spiritual, but very grounded. Yes.
Right, and is not somebody that's running around like a crazy person. I mean, you have control. You got your stuff in order, is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. Yes.
Did they? And I guess when we talk about they, who are they? And did they come to you, or did you approach them for something, or how did this whole thing kind of churn itself up?
Okay. Well, for those of you who are following my background and also the experience in the event that happened, I sent a book to a high-profile musician. If you want me to name the band, that's fine. Some people will get sketchy. I've testified in court against those people. They're a Canadian band named Rush. Neil Peart was the person I sent the book to. And within a week's time, my home was under surveillance. My phones were bugged. My computer was tagged with a key logging, with interface with Michael J. Mosbach, who was Neil Peart's right-hand man, and also directs the surveillance program, which is based on this technology, which, of course, they use. It's a form of synthetic telepathy, which they use for their touring and for communication and sometimes for entertainment. So this is a technology. What I'm talking about is a technology interface that allows you to be the spy bird for anybody or anything. If Neil Peart's interface with this technology, he can literally wander around without any type of radio headset or anything. He can literally be interfaced with the AI technology and also his live handler or operator or controller, which at that point would have been Michael J. Mosbach, and he's the same person that pulled me in. And I know this is a lot, but if you want more details on it, I have the books out. I have a documentary out. I had to testify in court in 2006 about it. So, yeah, it's been a long road.
Now, the band, are you talking about Rush, the band Rush?
I certainly am, yes.
What do they gain by doing this to a person, Solaris?
Well, I think they run them through a lot of battery of programs. First of all, it was more of a recruitment. I think they were. I think it was kind of a dual thing where they were trying to get information, programming, recruitment. A lot of it was based on pattern recognition, synthetic telepathy to see if it worked, and also I think it was entertainment for them to some degree on tour. And obviously not appropriate in any form or design, so I had to address it. But they use it. He's used it all these years for his surveillance system. I mean, that's a high-tech communication system. This is something that goes beyond, I would say, Secret Service. Certain people who are classified in black technology have access to the synthetic telepathy. If you look onto the military operations that are going on now, if you look into DARPA, you'll find that their synthetic telepathy is being deployed. It's being used in the military. It works very well. They don't talk about it a whole lot, and they kind of teeter in between worlds and kind of give you a taste of it, but it literally is very effective. And being a test pilot for this, I will tell you, yes, it is, without a doubt.
So, okay, how does a person get, like with you, did somebody approach you? Did somebody were you just a target?
Basically, they literally targeted me back. I sent him the book, and within a week, everything was interfaced with the communication live feed real time. They were also coming to the area to do a tour in Colorado at the time when I was living there. So literally, they were interfaced with me and literally live feed real time and communication and programming me at that timeline. So, and also, Michael J. Mosbach announced himself through the real-time live feed, and I didn't know who he was. until later on when I actually met him in person. And also, when I met Michael in person, this was on Maui the first time, he confirmed the communication system. He confirmed the hearing and a lot of other things. So this isn't something that's just la-la land. This is actually real. So they did profile me, and they did decide to tag me and put me into this program.
What's the benefit at the end of the day for this?
The benefit for them is more contracts and more money, because this is a black technology. So it's really about testing people, inducting them and seeing how the technology works. I will tell you one thing. I was inducted in 2004, and between 2004 and now, we've had huge breakthroughs in synthetic telepathy, mind mapping, neural circuitry interface with machines and computers, the transhumanism thing. I mean, everything that I went through, the battery of programs they put me through with pattern recognition, you name it, it seems to be spotlighted now in these covert departments, and also they're starting to deploy it a little bit more and more. So they did have quite a few breakthroughs, and like I said, it's a test pilot thing where they put you through these programs, and some of it's for recruitment, but, you know, if you don't play the game, then you're not going to get recruited into these programs. It's simple as that.
Do a lot of people, Solaris, that get recruited or get drugged into this, are there some people that enjoy it?
I think they do, and you know, for me, it's like I couldn't be in a control room doing this to somebody and ruining their life. I mean, I had a professional career in life before they inducted me. It wasn't like I was some stray kid on a street somewhere. I mean, I literally had a career, a family, a life, stability, and they just completely traumatized me with this program and pulled me out of my orbit with my husband and pulled me into a program that was really, you know, yeah, I could work with that program. I'd probably make a really good sci-fi, but the bottom line is it's not my career. It wasn't something I wanted to be involved in, and I didn't like the fact that they were able to remotely access me and manipulate me to such an extent. It was not good. It puts the body in shock. Very, very harsh on the system.
So would you say it's almost like a Manchurian Candidate type of scenario?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they can use it for programming mind control. Absolutely. You can use it to program a candidate for just about anything, for a spy bird, for surveillance personnel, for anybody who's working with high profile, whether it's presidential candidates or it's somebody who's in the military. Yeah, you can use it for just about anything. But there's a downside to it because it is also a remote assassin weapon. You can take people out remotely with this technology. It's satellite driven. This is not microwaves. It goes beyond the microwaves. It goes beyond the scalar waves. These guys have mastered the technology to such an extent. I mean, this is a black technology. It's very, very black. It goes very, very deep.
Where do you think it originates from?
A lot of it originated from what I suspect to be the Nazis prior to World War II. A lot of that entered the information that they were acquiring, which is based on archives, and some of it was off-world information, but literally they reverse engineered a lot of technology, whether it was craft or you know, re-engineering other types of communication systems based on artificial intelligence design. And then, of course, the body is electrical, so it's very easy to interface anybody on this planet with artificial intelligence. I'll tell you that point blank. Your body, your mind is a supercomputer. Your brain is a supercomputer design. It's electrical. It can interface really, really easily with this technology. And to you, I would say, and to the listeners, this is something that will be deployed down the road. You might think this sounds like science fiction right now, but I'm telling you, this is part of the transhumanism agenda, and the reason that I came forward with this technology is because I didn't want to see it misused. I'm fine with it being used on an appropriate level, but not when it's being misused to take people's lives apart.
I would agree 1,000,000,000% with you. When you're let me ask you this, and I'm kind of going all over the place, but when a person, are there people out there that have been recruited or are being used as pawns in this program and have absolutely no clue of what's going on?
I believe there are, yeah. I think they can easily do heterodyning, EEG heterodyning onto people, and EEG cloning, which will create an altered personality that can be integrated in at a very soft level so that they wouldn't even notice. Yeah, I do believe that they can easily be manipulated. And like I said, I've seen it. I've seen a lot of people programmed. I wasn't programmable, so they tortured me more with the psychotronics and other things because I was literally backing them up. I was backing my handler up, and I was backing the program up.
Wow. But a lot of people aren't aware of it, and they just go with the flow.
Right. A lot of people would probably think they're losing their minds.
Right.
If they can interface with the artificial intelligence, you know, that's very, I want to say it's robotic, but when you have a live handler real time, it's so real. It's real. It's a real person. It's like you and I in conversation, except it's an interface where we're actually almost like two people in one body. So, and you can see how this would be really good on the battlefield with soldiers, you know, where you have an operator and a controller and a programmer helping them, or even for remote piloting, you know, for craft or black space programs and things like that, which I know they're using it for.
Wow. Is there hardware involved, Solaris?
The hardware is based on a signal anomaly, as far as I can tell. And I will tell you that my own anomaly, which is what I call Merkaba signal, and I've referenced this before in my book, and if anybody who understands mystery schools or mysticism or light body consciousness understands that once you get to a certain vibrational frequency, you get a Merkaba signal, which you can, which really resonates at a very high universal sounding. And at that level, you can actually pierce different multidimensional spaces in consciousness. Now, that signal was appealing to them to a point where they actually took that signal and interfaced it onto the artificial intelligence program. And I still have this signal today, which was measured by Steve Colburn, who's the chief scientist for the late Dr. Roger Lear. And I have all this information documented. It's on my DVD.
This is some pretty deep stuff.
It's very deep. And, I know it's a lot of information, and I understand how people feel about bands and musicians, but I will tell you, you have to look beyond the spectrum of just entertainment industry and realize that there's the technology out there that's very appealing to people who have a lot of money, and it's used for surveillance security. Like I said, you don't need a headset. It's ideal, actually. It's a really ideal type of technology for a lot of people out there who are in black technology or black projects. There's no doubt about it. And I know they use it. I know they use the interface.
There's, we kind of, like when you talk about with the music groups, of course there's always, and I don't know how true this is, but of course there's some, they say there's some albums that you can play backwards and there's subliminal message there. Do you think that in maybe in its weakest, weakest form, it is used for subliminal purchasing and buying things there's all kinds of, I don't want to say crazy theories because they're not, but there's reasons why Coca-Cola signs are red and white. There's a lot of subliminal stuff that goes on. Is some of this stuff, Solaris, at a very, very ultra low level that is just for gainful purchase, people to purchase stuff? Can it be at various degrees?
Oh, absolutely. And I know they've deployed this. This was years ago. I think back in the 80s. They were deploying a type of transmission, if I'm not mistaken, through music to prevent people from stealing, from shoplifting and things like that. So they've always been deploying subliminal messages and dialogue through different frequencies, sometimes microwaves, but they've graduated from the microwaves to the black satellite technology, which is based on artificial intelligence and interface. That's where society is heading right now. So as much as the microwaves are a nuisance, and yes, they make you sick, and yes, you can hijack people and make them very ill through gang stalking and gaslighting through the technology, there's another beast involved, which is beyond scalar frequency, or scalar wave, and that's the one that they're using, and that's the one that's hardcore black military. And that's the one I'm warning you about ahead of time.
What effect is, and again, again, it's a lot to wrap your mind around here. What type of warning? What is that? What can that be used for? How can that be? How can that be taken advantage of?
Okay, well, I can tell you point blank, for anybody who has a regular logical life and a rational professional career, it will wipe your life out in 24 hours or less if you don't understand what's happening to you. It can take your vitals out. It will immediately change your brainwave patterns. It will alter you to a point where you start hearing dialogue, whether it's a live feed, real-time handler, or they decide to put you in with a mock radio communication system, which will torture you with looping, or sometimes they'll take something where they're turning an interrogation program on you. And a lot of this fusion center data, this data mining that they're doing, they're taking information so that they can use it. And I really believe this because after where I've been with the technology, that they can actually take that information and use it and deploy it onto you, a target, and psychotronically harass you nonstop with the dialogue and the information just to drive you insane. Literally, it's a torturous avenue. It's used for mind control. They want to break you down and rebuild you. And when they rebuild you, you're nothing but a robot that takes orders from and the programming. There's no consciousness. The soul and the spirit get violated. So you can see how it can be very intrusive. And once again, it's a weaponization of technology.
What do they do? How do people? There's so many people that that suffer from depression. Is depression one of the side effects of this, or the cause?
Depression, I think it can be a transmission in general, like HAARP can affect the emotional body on a mass scale. Certain transmissions in general can affect people psychologically. We all know that. Dirty electricity will affect people's health. It can affect people's moods, whether they're more positive when they're getting, fresh air versus the chemtrails. Of course, chemtrails are another scenario I could talk about. Excuse me, because it's all a weaponization of our atmosphere, and it goes on and on to so many different levels. But it certainly seems to me, after observing this, and actually from my own experience and having people contact me, that this whole country and this planet is under attack. on a technological level.
Wow. Who do you think the high-level handlers are?
I think they're connected to the Black Space Program myself. I don't think that they're people in D.C. I mean, D.C., I will tell you point blank that CIA is notorious for mind control. People in DARPA, all these organizations, NSA, they're all part of the equation. There's no doubt about it. They're all part of mind control and psychotronic warfare and harassment. And they will do that, and they have access to the technology on a soft scale. They don't have the hardcore artificial intelligence access, not yet. But I'll tell you what, if they do, it's going to be really bad. But right now, I believe that I know the technology that I was exposed to goes into the underground. It's black technology. I know that the technology that most of these people are getting hit with these days is usually being driven by divisions and departments, probably connected to CIA. You know, CIA, like I said, they're notorious for mind control programs. And the one thing that I've noticed that there's this big push for disclosure in D.C. about UFOs, but there's no talk about covert technology and synthetic telepathy and psychotronic warfare. Nobody's saying a word about that, and it all ties in. Because a lot of these people who get interface with a contactee, say, with quote-unquote extraterrestrial, could be a psychotronic program appearing as an extraterrestrial, when in fact it's actually part of the array system.
Wow. A couple comments from some listeners. One comment is does Solaris agree that telepathy is the next step in control by eliminating humans' free will and thought free will?
Absolutely it is. Yeah, if you look back at 1984 or THX 1138, or you look at anything, that's been presented to the masses as a movie or a film, you'll see that it's actually right there in your face, hidden in plain sight. So yeah, I agree with that. And also where I've been with the technology, I mean, they didn't allow for me to have free will. I had to push them back. And it took everything in my spirit and my soul to push these people back. And I still have an anomaly signal.
Till this day.
Yep, you bet. And it's been measured, and the problem with that is it can be hacked, and not that they can control my brain, but they can certainly take me out. So wow. I don't like it at all.
No, no.
And this is why I talk about it.
I'm not laughing at you.
I know. I understand. And, it's a lot to digest. It really is. It's a lot of information.
Well, but it's one of those things. It's like, how do you? I mean, it is, but it's like, how else do you present it to somebody?
I try to present it. Yeah, I try to present it with technology, because the technology is really what it's about. And my experience and the trauma I went through, that's really bad. But I'll tell you, if you get to the technology, you understand the patents, and some of them are classified. But if you understand that we already have this technology, and that people are getting targeted who have special abilities. I'm very powerful as a natural psychic and remote viewer. That's an asset to them if they can interface that onto their communication system and deploy it. My martial arts background is an asset, too. I mean, all these things, or background rather, all these things are assets to these guys, so they'll take certain skill levels of people and use those templates to interface it onto the artificial intelligence, which will become a very big global array system. And no, you won't have your free will honored at all. It'll just be like a hive.
My good friend Bill in upstate New York commented, and you would understand this more than me, but he says Rush did have a song about Cygnus X1. Maybe you could comment on that a little bit.
Well, I mean, if you look at Neil Peart's work in general in the past, or if you want to say Peart, I call him Peart, but everything he's been writing about is about signals intelligence programs, and it's about the interface with the technology. Cygnus X1, I mean, that's kind of expanded in consciousness, but I think 2112 is really the one that you need to pay attention to, the lyrics with that one, because it's right there hidden in plain sight. They're talking about the technology itself and the interface. Everything he's been writing about for years and years and years has been about this, and I never caught it. I never caught it until I was inducted, until they pulled me into their world, and then I saw it. But then I didn't like the fact that they were misusing the technology to do things that were not appropriate. So, I believe in technology, but you can't use it to destroy people's lives and brainwash them. That's wrong.
I totally agree. A question that Bill sends in for you, it says, does Bill, hold on a second here, Solaris. It says, does Solaris believe that the government will use this technology to predict and those of future thought-type crimes?
Yes, they will. And actually, there's a program that does that. It'll try to probe, and it's an interrogation program is what it is, and it'll just try to drill you and drill you and drill you until you give them the response they want to hear. And if you don't give them the response they want to hear through the communication system, they attack you. They can cause seizures. They can take your vitals out. They can drop you to the floor. And the reason I'm saying this is because they did it to me. I would not comply with them trying to change me, change my identity, and create alters, so I was tortured for that through the communication system.
So not physical torture as far as an individual, but mind torture?
It's physical and mind, because
Right.
you're basically interfaced with the AI. So it'll attack your neural circuitry. One time they took me to the ground. There are many times when my vitals dropped, where I thought I wasn't going to make it, and then they reboot you, because it's an interface that has a really strange parallel and correlation to the natural four-body system. It's almost like it adapts on, and then it starts creating this neural network of its own. So it's a hybridization of your own body after a while. I mean, I'm very concerned because I've been interfaced with the technology for 10 years, So I'm not the same woman I was in 2004 at all.
Would they use this technology to prove a point to you, Solaris, to just, like you talk about being, like, the physical effects? Is that something that they, do they kind of set do they make an example just to let you know that what your experience is really there?
Oh, absolutely. And, this was confirmed through my handler, too, who I met in person, Michael J. Mosbach, by the way. And actually, before I actually had to testify in court, he looked me right in the eye and leaned over and said, "I'm in your head." And he knew. I mean, we were interfaced live feed real time with each other. I mean, the whole thing is real. And it's just really sad, because when you see this type of thing being misused and the games being played out, people are not insane. People are not losing their minds. But this technology will create a really strange brainwave pattern, which what they call EEG cloning and heterodyning, which can create a schizophrenic brainwave pattern. And that's something that people need to be aware of, that sometimes when people are getting analyzed, say with a psychologist or somebody, they may not even be schizophrenic. They might be inducted into a program. Right. So that's something that people need to look out for.
Well, and I think that's especially in this state, this is the state the doctors love to give patients Prozac. I think it's the Prozac capital of the world. And, I've always believed that some of these people that feel that they have a mental illness or experiencing these things, I sometimes wonder if it is these outside type things. And of course, right away, medicines are prescribed to kind of quell people down. Now, you, just before we go on, because we got some other comments and questions, you do a radio program as well, correct?
I do. I host two radio shows, actually. One is called Hyperspace on Dark Matter Radio Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I have another one tonight at 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time called Raven Star's Witching Hour, which is on Revolution Radio.
Oh, very, very cool. Keeps you busy, huh?
It does, but I really wanted to give people the floor to communicate. And a lot of these people that I interview have a lot to say that's very accurate.
Well, that's why I wanted you on this show, because like I said, it's a lot to digest, without a doubt, because there's so much to it.
Mm-hmm. There's so many levels to it. And I'll tell you what, the more I start diving into the black technology in the underground, the more I'm starting to see it all. And the UFOs and the connection between the UFOs and how a lot of those are created by the Fourth Reich, Third Reich, whatever you want to call them. I mean, there's a lot that's off-world, and there's a lot that's the black technology that we've created. So it's really amazing, and I think a lot of people have been deceived over decades, and I'm hoping that we can kind of shine some light.
Without a doubt. Another listener writes in and says, have you spoken or compared experiences with Laura Eisenhower?
I love Laura Eisenhower, and she's going to be on my show in a couple of weeks. I've talked to her, but, she and I, we talk really fast, I know, and we kind of are starseed-oriented in consciousness, but I haven't really compared notes with her, but I think we've been in different, we've had different induction experiences, but I think we're very similar. Let's put it that way.
What's with all the people that you've interviewed and talked with that come on your program and discuss this topic? Is it any age, demographic, race, group? I mean, can it be anybody, anywhere, at any time?
I think it can be anybody they want to profile and pull into their program. It just happened to be, what they were looking for at the time, and they even said it was like 1,000,000 to 1 shot for whatever reason. And I think they really hit me in my prime when they pulled me into the program. But from what I've seen in my own research, I think there are a lot of people who are Celtic who get pulled into some kind of a covert program, whether it's a MyLab or something else. I've heard the Native Americans also get pulled in, so I think they are looking for that. Age group-wise, there are a lot of young people who are getting pulled into military abductions right now, MyLabs, and that ranges from, I guess, I don't know, maybe in their teens up into their 20s. I still believe that the children being born today are getting modified in the womb, and that's not unheard of. I mean, I really think that there's this transhumanism thing going on where people are becoming more and more modified, and that's very concerning to me because it's a violation, once again, of the spiritual design work that we're all given.
Here's the $1,000,000 question. How do we fight it?
Well, I've been on the front lines of fighting this stuff. First of all, you break down the technology and you look at the technology hardcore. You understand what the technology is, and then you go from that level to getting out there and talking about it. And also, I've talked to a lot of different developers. Now, the developers I've talked to, Robert Duncan, he's worked on some of the psychotronic programs, Dr. Robert Duncan. I was also a guest speaker at the Super Soldier Summit, by the way, 3 years in a row, and we met and talked. And of course, there's, they say there's Faraday cages and there's this and there's that. But I don't think there's any way to break it, to break that signal until the array system gets turned off and switched off, and that's going to be a fight. So, in my opinion, I think the array system needs to go, and this is a black satellite-driven technology. Microwave towers are a nuisance, yes, but the driving force behind this is artificial intelligence. That's the wave of the future, and if it's not controlled and we don't get a grip on this beast, then it's going to be completely taking everybody on a very big ride of false matrices, false realities, and mind control.
Do you think that these abduction, the alien abduction scenarios, do you think that they really happen, or do you think it could be could be like a hologram in your brain? Could it? Do you think that they really take place? They physically take place, or do you think some of those type of events are created with an outside force?
Mm-hmm. Well, I know the planet's holographic, and we have a holographic universe, so you're dealing with multidimensional perspective to begin with. I do know that some people get pulled into legitimate contactee experiences where there are off-world species, and usually that connects into their ancestry in some way, the bloodline, the frequency, their spiritual work, and their resonance with other star systems and universes, what I call soul extension. So I do believe and am aware that there are legitimate contactees. I also know that there's a psychotronic project going on with the Covert Mind Lab programming where they pull people in, they run them through a lot of different tests and programming, they create alters on these people, and then they have certain transmissions, pattern recognition, like kind of what they use with me, but they'll use triggers and keywords to a certain level, to a point where these people will get triggered at some point in the continuum. Those are the ones you have to watch out for, because that's the majority of people right now are getting pulled into covert programming. And they'll use a mask of an ET, yes.
Interesting. You talked a little bit about chemtrails. Let's hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I had Russ Tanner on my show, and he's been a regular on my show. You might want to have him on yours. And he was talking about the geoengineering and the chemtrails. And, obviously they're deploying something in those chemtrails that's not healthy for us. I've heard all different types of aluminum and mercury that's very toxic to the body. Everything that they're deploying cannot be healthy, which tells me that they're doing something to modify at the DNA level. Excuse me. So it's my impression that they're also deploying some form of nanotechnology and something that's actually modifying on a very subliminal level the masses. It's also lulling people. It gets them to a point where they get very sleepy. Russ was telling me that a lot of people, he's noticed mood swings when they do a lot of heavy spraying opposed to when they're not spraying. There's a lot going on with that.
Yeah, I haven't. The only in the years I've been doing the program, the only chemtrail person I had on was I'm having a senior moment. Michael, he did the documentary film What in the World Are They Spraying?
Oh right, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
And the whole chemtrail thing. It's kind of up. It's one of those things that either you believe, you buy into it, or you don't. And it seems like, and I'm sure you, as you have callers and listeners and people that comment, it's kind of a 50-50 thing. Do you believe that it's used mainly? Some people believe it's strictly used, for changing agriculture, for playing with food and corn crops and agricultural stuff, or do you think there's a lot more to it than just that?
Well, I think there's a lot more to it. It's a weaponization of our atmosphere. First of all, you're dealing with things. They can actually bounce different signals across that. When they're deploying that chemtrail, they can actually bounce different types of signals that can affect the masses on a mass scale. They're weaponizing our atmosphere, any way you look at it. It's also weather control and weather manipulation. And once again, you have to take everything with a grain of salt and say, well, okay, we can do that if we have a drought. That's great if we are able to see the clouds and this and that. But literally what they're doing is more of a dumbing down, is my impression. And from my experience with this type of technology and the interface and the way they're using it, it's all about weaponization. It's all about mind control. It's all about shutting you down, switching you off, and shutting your DNA off. It's not about ascension. It's not about higher consciousness. It's not about spirituality or free will. So those are the things that I'm looking at on a very logical level. And I would say just check it out for yourselves. I'm sure people can understand when they go out. Some days, if there's chemtrails in the sky, It may not feel as good. If the clouds are like normal and it's clear, then you'll probably feel a lot better.
Yeah, well, without a doubt. Or some of the patterns that look awfully geometric.
Right, crisscross. You know, I've been out to Utah and Moab, and I swear I've never seen so many chemtrails in my life. This was years and years and years ago. A lot of chemtrails out there.
Yeah, quite a few of them.
Yeah.
And I've myself, you know, a couple of times I've seen some aircraft flying overhead, and it's like you can see all three. You know, I mean, I believe there are vapor trails because they do exist, but sometimes you'll see some of these aircraft that you can see the vapor trail, but then there's two other trails hanging right out below the wing, below them.
Right. Exactly. I really propose that you have Russ Tanner on your show. I can put you in touch with him because he explains it better than I could ever explain it, but it's obvious. It's very obvious after he talks about how they're deploying this stuff, and he has confirmation too. He comes from a family of pilots, by the way.
Oh, I would more than appreciate that. It's about being open-minded and educating and letting people, you know, putting the information out there. There's some people that'll listen, as you know. There's some people who say, "Oh, this person's nuts. They're crazy. They're over-medicated," and then there's those people that'll say, "Well, there's something to this," you know. And
well, it's education. You know,
right.
It's really about education. But yeah, it's a hard thing to digest. I mean, everything I'm talking about tonight. But you know, if you look at, I can actually send you links that talk about synthetic telepathy in the military. I mean, there's stuff out there. It's already there. So I'm just talking about it because I participated with this and I didn't sign up for it. And I think that people, once they get interfaced with something like this, they may think twice about their futures and their children. And obviously, we want to go in a direction where we're doing positive things on this world and we're not completely weaponized and paranoid. I don't want to see that. And this isn't about fear. This is just about education.
What do you think? What's your feeling, Solaris? I mean, right now, we keep hearing the government wants all the kids, get them their flu shots, get their medicine. What's your thoughts on microchipping? Do you think that that's been happening for a long time?
I think it has. I think people have been monitored for a very, very long time. You know, the bottom line is we've become so technologically advanced. I mean, you know, with internet and iPhones and everything, we're constantly being tracked even if we don't want to be. I mean, we're accessible, let's put it that way. But the next step to all of this, after the iPhones, is going to be the interface with machines. That's the transhumanism agenda, and everybody's prepped for it already. I mean, if you look at the children, I never had an iPhone when I was growing up. I mean, my goodness, I had a typewriter, and, you know, but these kids have all sorts of technology. They're already calibrated for it, so the next step is interface. Now, that could be positive or negative depending on the agenda behind it. But from what I've seen, and from what I'm looking at here in America on a global scale, it looks to me like there's a lot of control and manipulation going on. So it doesn't, and I know they're weaponizing everything. So
well, exactly.
We're informed. Yeah.
I mean, the NSA is. We've got a data center down the street over here that's just ginormous, and it's amazing what they're keeping a track on.
And what's so funny is nobody's life is that interesting. It's just no one's life is. You know, you think about it, really. So you know it's something more than that, and it's obvious to me. You start looking at these patents and this covert technology, you start realizing that, wait a minute here, there's something else. And it's also about shutting people down from ascending to the next level, which is a higher level of consciousness. I mean, we're designed to ascend. We're not designed to go backwards, and yet I see everything going in reverse right now, yet we have this huge black technological advancement that nobody knows about.
Right. Bill writes in and says, Solaris, do you feel that we're all headed to transhumanism and becoming some hybrid cyborg being or cyborg engine?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. Especially after where I've been with the technology, I'd say that's probably where they're heading. And I don't know if people will give much resistance because, as you probably noticed, people don't squawk a whole lot these days. I mean, they're kind of complying and they're being complacent, and maybe that's mass mind control and influence on a subliminal level, but nobody seems to be having a problem with that. So I suspect that, yeah, that's the end game is transhumanism, without a doubt.
Well, you know, one thing I find interesting, and I think this is it's in its simplest of forms, and I think most people will agree with this. We've got social media. I mean, not that many years ago, yeah, you had the internet, and you know it was cool to look different things up and find different things. And then the Google Earth appeared, and now you can pretty much drop yourself down in front of anybody's home and spin around and see what's in the neighborhood. But like this social media, I'm part of it. I mean, I use it for the radio program. I see you post on there as well. But
Right.
social media has really consumed us to the point of people say, well, it's not that big of a deal. Well, it is that big of a deal because on job applications, the few that I've taken a look at, they want to know what your Facebook account is.
Mm-hmm.
What does that have to do with how you can flip and cook hamburgers, or you can cashier in a line, or you can do an accounting job? But social media is now getting pulled into people's everyday work.
Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you. I worked surveillance in a casino years ago, and I had to sign off on something that I literally couldn't post anything about casino work, what I was doing on my Facebook account and all that. So yeah, they do. They monitor that. Now they're worse now. Now they'll actually scrutinize your file, and if you're if you have free will and you execute that free will, well, that's not somebody they want to hire. Somebody who can think. Heaven forbid, right?
Right. Exactly. Where can our listeners get your books at and your work at?
My books are on Amazon.com, so you can access my books, either Remote Black Operations and Areas Beyond 52 and all of my other books right there. And also my website's Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives. If you want to access my website and contact me, you can do that. Also, I'm on Facebook. And my DVD documentary is also on Amazon.com, and I have that available on my website as well.
I got to take a look at your DVD. You can buy that through Amazon?
I can send it. I'll just send you a copy.
I would love a copy of it.
Just send me an email later and shoot me an email on your address. I'll send you a copy.
I would love to see that. Solaris, the hour went way too quick, and you laid a lot down on the line there, girl. That was. I
talk fast too.
That's okay. I've slowed it down, but I'm from Chicago, so I could speed it up too. But there's just a lot there, and I don't know how else you could present it in the way you do. But now people tonight can listen to your show starting at 12 o'clock Eastern. Is that correct?
12 o'clock, yeah, Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, Raven Star's Witching Hour on Revolution Radio. Yep.
And do you talk a lot about, is the main topic or all?
No, I actually mix it up with my guests. We talk about paranormal, mysticism, you name it. MK Ultra, we do talk about that once in a while, but I try not to dwell on it. I just have a lot of information on the technology, so as guided, I communicate it, obviously with interviews and things like that. So.
Sounds great. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I will send you my information, and I'd love to get you. I need to see the DVD, and I need to get you back on again.
Certainly, anytime.
It was an honor to have you here. Have a great weekend, what's left of it again, and thank you for some time on Saturday night.
Thank you, Pat. Honor to be here.
Same here. Take care, my friend. Good night.